PCs are complex devices, which is why there are so many myths surrounding them. Sometimes these are total lies, and other times they were once true, but are no longer valid today. In this video, I'm going to talk about exactly these. This way, you'll save both time and money. So let's get started. This concept isn't actually new to the channel. I previously published a video covering different PC myths. If this interests you, you can watch that video after this one. So let's start with our first myth. Myth 1. The image always degrades when switching from high resolution to low resolution. This is both true and false. Monitors have a specific physical number of pixels, and this dictates what the resolution is. When you use a 1080p monitor at 1080p resolution, you get the most natural and sharpest image. However, if you lower a Quad HD monitor to 1080p because your PC's performance isn't enough, the image will degrade seriously. The reason is this: the pixel layout of Quad HD resolution cannot be divided into 1080p by a whole integer ratio. This causes pixels to mismatch, leading to half pixels being carried over, resulting in blurriness and distortion. If you want to lower the resolution on a Quad HD monitor, the most logical option is 1280 by 720. Because this resolution is an exact integer divisor of Quad HD, the pixels match up correctly. Consequently, the image you get is a genuine and clean 720p. But if you experience the same situation on a 4K monitor, you won't suffer image loss, because exactly 2 times of 1080p is 2160p, or 4K resolution. This means the pixels divide perfectly. Along with this myth, I can also say this: if you are using a build with an RTX 3060 and plan to switch to a more powerful graphics card, like an RTX 6070 in the future, it might make sense to lean towards 4K monitors if you want to buy a high-resolution display early. You won't experience serious ugliness using 1080p on a 4K monitor with an RTX 3060, and when you upgrade your graphics card later, you'll be ready for 4K resolution. It might sound like an edge case, but the tech world is full of surprises. If the resolution topic doesn't interest you much, the next myth will catch your attention a lot more. Myth 2. The 1 millisecond label on monitors is real. Except for OLED monitors, this is a big fat no. There is already a detailed guide on the channel about this, but I will summarize the subject briefly and clearly here. 2 different response time measurements are used in monitors: GTG and MPRT. GTG, or gray to gray, is the transition time from one shade of gray to another. This value is generally referred to as the first response time, and the 1 millisecond tag we see in monitor ads usually refers to the GTG value. MPRT, or moving picture response time, is the response time for moving images. As you can guess from the name, it is based on objects moving on the screen and covers all color transitions. That's why the MPRT value always comes out higher compared to GTG. These 2 values are directly linked. If the gap between them widens too much, serious image problems like ghosting occur. This is exactly why there are many 1 millisecond monitors on the market that are infamous for ghosting issues. This is the first reason debunking the myth. The second reason is this: you see constantly changing frames on the screen while gaming. Therefore, in practice, the value that really matters is MPRT. However, ads usually list GTG because it is much more attractive for marketing. If the MPRT value is high, you will experience serious motion clarity problems, especially ghosting. This brings us to the third and strongest proof: the FPS to millisecond relationship. 1 second is 1000 milliseconds. If you divide 1000 by your monitor's refresh rate, you find the ideal MPRT value that needs to be reached. For example, for a 165 Hz monitor, the ideal MPRT value is approximately 6.06 milliseconds. However, many monitors on the market cannot fully provide even this value. To obtain a genuine 1 millisecond MPRT, you theoretically need a 1000 Hz monitor. So the 1 millisecond tag you see on the market today practically does not reflect reality most of the time. On the other hand, there is no such mathematical limit for GTG. The ideal is for both GTG and MPRT values to be low and remain close to each other. You cannot learn these values just by reading the box or the spec sheet. For real results, you need to look at reliable sources like Artings that test monitors with specialized equipment. Myth 3. A high Hertz monitor is a must-have. There isn't a single clear answer to this. The most important criterion here is your usage scenario. If you are browsing the internet, watching videos, and doing daily simple tasks, even a 75 Hz monitor is more than enough. If you play esports-focused games, things change. In these types of games, you generally get very high FPS values. Therefore, monitors with high refresh rates like 240 Hz, 280 Hz, or even 360 Hz can provide a competitive advantage. However, if you play AAA story-driven games, it is difficult to reach FPS values as high as in esports games. In this scenario, your sole focus shouldn't be the monitor's hertz value. For most users, 165 Hz is sufficient in terms of both fluidity and performance. Another important criterion is resolution. Remember that as resolution increases, the FPS you get will decrease. However, you don't have to be distant toward 4K 144 Hz monitors from the start, because if your hardware is sufficient, they can be a very logical choice. The biggest criterion here is your PC's hardware power. To establish this balance correctly, definitely look at the gaming performance of the graphics card you use at 1080p, Quad HD, and 4K resolutions. This ensures you choose the monitor that fits your needs and prevents you from spending unnecessarily. Myth 4. All OLED screens are the same. No, they are not. There are different types of OLED screens: W-OLED, QD-OLED, and tandem OLED. Each of these panels has advantages and disadvantages compared to one another. W-OLED panels have an extra white subpixel layer. Thanks to this, white brightness and general brightness performance are better. QD-OLED panels offer a wider color gamut thanks to the quantum dot layer. They are generally more successful regarding color accuracy and especially text clarity compared to W-OLEDs. Tandem OLED is created by stacking two separate OLED panels on top of each other. Theoretically, it offers the best performance but is also the most expensive OLED type. Here, the choice often depends on your budget. However, according to general users and reviews, it can be said that QD-OLED panels are more balanced and successful. The characteristic advantages of OLEDs, such as very fast response times, infinite contrast ratios, and pixel-based lighting, are preserved across all these panel types. Another point generally overlooked here is OLED generations. Burn-in problems were experienced much more frequently, especially in first-generation OLED panels. Over time, manufacturers made serious revisions to prevent these kinds of chronic problems and increase panel quality. That's why distinctions like second and third generation emerged. Here, the newer and more modern the OLED panel you choose, the more logical and long-lasting a choice you will have made. I'm cutting it short here since there is a separate video where I explain these topics in detail. If you're interested, you can reach that video from the cards. Now let's leave monitors aside and look at other peripherals. Myth 5. 8000 Hz on a mouse is very useful. Largely false. For many years, the standard refresh rate for mice was 1000 Hz. In the last few years, we started seeing values like 4000 Hz and 8000 Hz. The logic of Hertz in mice is similar to the refresh rate in monitors. This value represents the number of reports the mouse makes per second. As the Hertz increases, the mouse reports its movements to the PC more frequently. It sounds great on paper, but there are some serious disadvantages to this. First, if you are using an old or weak CPU, 8000 Hz can cause serious performance losses. FPS drops, micro-stutters, and increased system load are the most common examples of this. The second problem is the user factor. 8000 Hz means much more frequent data transmission. Since this will reflect even the slightest tremor in your hand to the PC, it can increase your margin of error, especially in games requiring stable aiming. Because of this, some users even consciously lower their 8000 Hz supported mice to 1000 Hz or 2000 Hz. Another important point is battery life. As Hertz increases, battery consumption in wireless mice increases seriously. In summary, unless you are playing at a professional esports level, 1000 Hz will be more than enough for you. Myth 6. Buying high-quality headphones solves everything. If the headphones you chose are high-quality audiophile headphones, the answer is clearly no. In gaming headsets, this situation might rarely be valid. Headphones with aux outputs usually work with internal sound chips found on the motherboard, added just to save the day. These chips are often not powerful enough and prevent you from getting full efficiency from the drivers in the headphones. As a result, lower maximum volume, narrower dynamic range, and weak music performance emerge. That's why if you want to use powerful headphones that provide studio-quality sound, you need to use a separate DAC or amp unit alongside them. While these units provide the power the headphones need, they also offer much cleaner and higher quality sound processing. If your headphones aren't at a level that really needs a DAC, the return you get will only be a large expense. On the other hand, some headphones like the SteelSeries Arctis Nova Pro already come with their own DAC units, and a large portion of gaming headsets do not need an external DAC anyways. Myth 7. A reliable brand always makes good products. A big no. Not just for this video, but for every topic. Brands have different product tiers within themselves, and this is the crucial point many miss. While a brand may be very successful in its high-end products, the same brand may not show the same care in the lower tiers. This gap is sometimes filled by other brands that are less known but do a very good job on specific models. I'll use graphics cards to give a clearer example. For instance, gigabyte wind force models are generally not very successful. In contrast, models like the Inno3D Twin X2 might be a more logical choice in the same segment. Apart from this, brands can make serious mistakes from time to time. One of the most obvious examples of this was the RTX 3060 Ti and RTX 3070 Ti models using GDDR6X memory in the RTX 30 series. In these cards using GDDR6X VRAM, memory temperatures were reaching truly absurd levels. Manufacturers were caught unprepared for this situation, and the cooling solutions used remained insufficient. Another important issue is the generation difference. For example, while Galaxy models were quite successful in the RTX 40 series, they couldn't maintain the same level of success in the RTX 50 series. Therefore, when shopping, focus on the model and how successful it is, not the brand. Now let's look inside the PC case with the last 3 points. Myth 8. The 80+ certificate is an indicator of quality. Wrong. Although the truth is told in many places, this is unfortunately a mistake that is still persistently repeated. The 80+ certificate indicates how efficiently a power supply, PSU, uses the electricity it draws from the socket. It does not directly measure quality. Let me explain this with a simple example. Imagine a build consuming 1,000 watts. Both PCs have a 1,000 watt PSU. One has an 80+ white and the other has an 80+ titanium certificate. In this case, while the white certified PSU draws approximately 1,220 watts from the socket, the titanium certified PSU will draw approximately 1,065 watts. So the difference is entirely about electrical efficiency. If you have render projects that take days or use a workstation where many PCs are running, this difference can seriously relieve your electricity bill at the end of the month. But of course, this is also a fact. To reach upper levels in the 80+ certification, the internal component quality of the PSU must also be at a certain level. However, products with fake 80+ certificates or certificates that do not reflect reality exist in the market. Therefore, 80+ alone is not a reliable quality benchmark. If you are suspicious of a PSU, you can check whether the relevant model is truly certified via cybernetics. Myth 9. VRMs on motherboards are very important. VRMs are important up to a point, but for most users, they aren't as critical as they are claimed to be. The basic duty of the VRMs, or voltage regulator modules on the motherboard, is to transmit the power the processor needs to the CPU in a stable manner. So, the main determining factor here is the processor you use. Today, many processors between the mid to high tier can work without issues with the VRM structure of most motherboards. The point where VRMs really gain more importance is with top-tier processors. But there is no need to exaggerate even there. In a PC running at stock settings, reasonable VRMs are more than enough. If you are dealing with overclocking, that's when VRM quality gains much more meaning. So let's talk a bit about this topic. Myth 10. Overclocking and undervolting make a serious difference. For overclocking, mostly no. For undervolting, yes. I prepared a detailed guide on this subject recently, and if you want to have deeper knowledge on this, you can watch it after this video ends. Here, I will just quickly summarize the main points. Nowadays, overclocking is not worth the time and money spent for most users. Stability issues, in particular, can appear at a moment you never expect and in a scenario you never anticipated. Undervolting requires a trial-and-error process just like overclocking. However, unlike overclocking, the probability of getting a return on your effort is much higher. There are many users who both obtain an FPS increase and seriously lower temperatures thanks to this. And with that, we wrap up this video. If you learned something new today, don't hesitate to share it in the comments. If you liked the video, don't forget to hit the like button. If not, feel free to dislike it. Stay mysterious until the next video. Take care, and bye.